Hello Steelers, not off, and welcome to this game of Strength and Honour. I'm going to show you a demo game basically of the new Two Fat Lordies or Right Switch Press rules, ancient gaming rules by Mark Backhouse. I've been playing this a couple of times now at the club, really enjoyed it. We took the game down to Partisan. Unfortunately I was off filming so I didn't really see the game being played, but I think a lot of people really enjoyed it. That was just the other week, that was on Sunday. But I thought I've been wanting to do this for a little while, is basically do a demo game basically of the rules, just to show you how they work and just take you through some of the steps of the game really to show it off. This is the Battle of Watling Street, fought during the Boudiccan Rebellion between the forces of Boudicca and some Romans in the area. It's quite a small battle and it's also quite compact as well, so it's probably perfect really for a demo game because there's nothing too crazy in the two sides. They're pretty simple really for an intro game. I'm also using as well, I'm going to be using the card or the print and play set of units that Two Fat Lordies have just released, and these only cost £5. You get a PDF, you can print them out yourself, cut them out and play with them, or do what I've done and I've sent them off to Doxdirect. I'll put a link in the description. For about £8 I got them printed on thick card, and then I've laminated them so I'm able to actually write on them as well with a dry wipe pen. The artwork I believe was done by Heroic Maps. Joe Bilton is one half of it. I don't know how much Joe and his partner were involved in either part of this, but they're drawn by them. They look great as well, they look great on the table. The table I'm using is my gridded table MDF board that I've got I got this for, well, I made this for Square Bashing and for Rommel, who works perfectly for Strength and Honour, and you could quite easily do this just by putting dots or little tokens on your own tabletop. So it's very easy to get into the game at the moment. As I say, you could literally buy the PDF. I think it's about £16 on the Two Fat Lordies website, and then £5 for the for your print and play units, and you can get playing this game straight away for about £20 pretty much. Obviously it's going to cost you a bit of ink to print the things. You could do it on your own printer, or you could do it like I did and go to a professional printer and get them done there. The other thing, I also printed out the cards as well. Same again, got those laminated, they're all ready to go. I'm not really sure what else to tell you about it at this point. What we'll do is we'll have a quick look at the forces, and then we'll just get into the game and I'll just show you how it works step by step, and we'll see who wins and who loses. Okay, so I'm just looking across the board here. As I said, this is a very basic, easy setup. I've already actually done the deployment. One of the things you do with the deployments is you put down one unit and then you put down another unit adjacent to the last unit you put down. So you've got to really think about where you're going to deploy. I've already done this, just again speed things up with the game. And what we've got is we've got the Ancient Britons here. They have got light chariots on the edges. They've also got light cavalry on their edge as well. And then we've got the Trinovanti warband towards the centre. They've got the Iceni warband, who are fanatics. They're holding the centre, and I've also given them skirmishers along with the Trinovantes here as well. They had a skirmisher unit. They've broken that down into 4 skirmish lines. So I've got a heavy lump of fanatic warbands in the centre, along with Trinovanti warband supporting here, and an Atrebates warband supporting here as well, because they will get support for that as they are warbands, as they're pushing forward. We've also then got on their right flank the Atrebates warband, again with another skirmish line here, and then finally they've got light chariots over on that right. Over on the Romans, we have 2 units of Legion. So we've got the 20th Legion and the 14th Legion. I'm looking at that upside down. This XIV, so yeah, that's 14th Legion. They're in the centre to hold that centre. And we also have veteran auxiliary on both flanks of those as well. So they're not as good as the Legion, but they are still pretty good, probably against the warbands. They've got higher combat. We've also got wooded hills on either side of this particular battlefield, and although you can't see it because my board is flat, the line from here is basically a line of a downhill slope. So anybody attacking from here down into here is going to be attacking downhill. So the Romans are actually basically always are going to be downhill until they hit this slope here, because they were up on the slopes of the hill. In the real battle, the Romans absolutely decimated the warbands. That led to Boadicea taking her own life, and the rebellion of the Boadician rebellion being crushed by the Romans, and peace returning to the Isle of Britain. So we'll see if the warbands can get round the flanks and do some damage to the Romans. So then over here we've got the command boards. Both sides already have 2 generalship markers or tokens that they're using. The Britons only have 2 combat command tokens, which they can place anywhere in their attack, defense, movement or strategy, and the Romans have 3 because they're a little bit better. So what I'm going to do with the Romans is, I'm thinking I kind of want to sit them on the defense, so I'm going to give them a defense tab straight away, which they can spend during the game, and I'm also then going to, I think, probably use a strategy, because they have a lower break point in this game. Let me just check what it is. I can't remember 100% what they are. The warband, the Britons have a much bigger, much larger break point, simply because they're a larger army. So let's just have a quick look. We have for the Romans, it's a break point of 13, so it's not very high. So we want a strategy token in there, so we can basically stop the homunculus est, at least for a turn. So that's what we're doing. We're thinking a bit defensive, really, to see what happens. Obviously the attack is for an attack, so they'll probably hold on to that and probably try to do a historical attack later on. And then the defence is obviously, quite obviously, you just re-roll defence dice. The Iceni have got an army breakpoint of 18, so that's quite a lot higher than the Romans in this case. But they do have their work cut out fighting uphill. And let's have a think about what they want to do. It might be a case of maybe thinking about movement to try to get up that hill quickly, especially for some of these light chariots, because they're pretty good if they can get into combat on the flanks. And then we're attacking, so let's just put an attack in there as well. There is one of them which allows them to spend a movement to get everybody moving at the same speed. So I'm going to check the rules and just check which one that is, and I might change those round for the Britons. So that's pretty much it set up. As I said before, I'm not particularly interested in the Ancients period, but you know, being an archaeologist, I have dug a lot of Iron Age and Romano-British sites in my time. So this particular scenario spoke to me more than the other ones in the book, so that's why I thought I'd use this one as a basic introductory game. And also, as I say, it's a relatively simple one. You've got got large numbers of similar kind of fighting forces on one side, and same with the Romans as well. You've only got the 2 different. You've got the auxiliary and you've got the legions. Whereas there's not a huge amount of different troop types in this one, but it'll be enough to show you basically how the game plays. So anyway, enough waffle, let's crack on with it. So I've checked the rules, and they can use a movement pool token to activate any number of unactivated friendly units to advance as a group with a single movement roll. All units must be in direct edge-to-edge contact with each other and not diagonally to benefit. So that's literally the entire army at this point. So what I've done is I've actually swapped one of their pool dice from the attack to movement. So they've got 2 movements. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this. They will move at the lowest rate of the units, which is the Iceni warbands. They're moving at D6. The other ones have got a few other extras on their movement. So like, for example, the Atrebates have got a D6 plus 1 on their movement. Light Chariots have got D6 plus 2, as you would expect. But because they're all moving together, they're going to move with a D6. So we basically, the way we do this is we simply roll a dice, and we're going to go with the Iceni warband. So this is them activating. So this is their activation dice. If they get a 1, then that's it. They don't get to move. They lose their activation. However, the higher the dice, the more movement squares they get, and each of these squares is broken into 2 squares. So that's 1, 2, for example. That would be 3 up there. The highest they can go is actually a 3 with a roll of a 6. So let's just see what they get anyway and go from there. So our movement roll is a 4. So that's for them. They don't get any pluses. A 4 or a 5 on the movement is a 2. So they can move 2 squares. So that's basically 1 big square. So as I say, we're using that movement point to go 1, 2. This means that everybody else will then shift up with them, leaving the lager behind. By the way, I didn't mention, but Boadicea herself is with the Iceni warband over there. So they're staying in formation and they're closing that gap on the Romans here as much as they can. But as I said, this has then cost them 1 of their movement points, so that ends their turn. So the way the game works is basically it's an I go, you go, but with an interrupted activation. So if they had failed their activations to advance, in this case they would have 2 because it's a 2 movement advance. 2 of those would be a reversal of fortune. Other things happen, like if you fail a charge or if you get pushed back. There's other bits and pieces you'll see as we go on in the game. But first of all, they didn't fail it, so they were able to move forward. However, everybody has moved and activated, so it now goes over to the Romans' turn. The Romans themselves are not going to do anything, they're just going to sit there. So we come back to the Iceni. So they are, again, they're going to spend that other movement point to get themselves moving once again. So let's see what they get this time. This time they rolled a 6. So this is actually 3 movement points. So they can now move up to 3 squares. So this is actually getting them really close into battle. It shows you how quick the game moves as well, if nothing else. If the Romans were moving towards the Britons, you know, we'd probably be clashing by maybe the next turn. So 1, 2, 3. To get into combat you need to charge, or just to be basically next to the unit. So 1, 2, 3. They are now just at the break of that slope going up, so they're still fighting uphill unless they can get up behind the Romans. And as I say, I'm just going to bring everybody up again to advance on that Roman position. So I'll draw those up into line there, nice and simple. So now they haven't got a great deal of space to move with their cavalry and their chariots, but they are still on the flanks of those Romans, especially against those auxiliaries, so it might be useful at some point. And then we take away that movement point, and that ends the Iceni's turn. Okay, the Romans are still, yet again, holding their ground, so they're going to pass their turn straight over to the Britons again. The Britons now want to actually try to get in on this flank, at least, with some of their cavalry and their chariots. So now we've gone on to the individual movement, so we test for each unit because we've given up already those movement points, so we've got none left to spend, so we can't move the entire army together, but they can start moving these individually. So this is what we're going to do. We've got light chariots. They're going to try to get up here and then turn to be able to get onto the flank. That will be, to move forward is very simple, really easy. However, if you are turning or doing any kind of manoeuvre, moving through enemy zone of control, which is the 3 squares in front, so for example for the auxiliary here, 3 squares in front, if you're moving through those, then you have to do a manoeuvre test. If you're turning, you have to do a manoeuvre test. If you're turning round, you have to do a manoeuvre test. There's quite a lot of, a few different bits and pieces of manoeuvre tests. But first of all, we need to activate them to see how far they actually move. And these are chariots, they get a +2 on this. So potentially they could move up to 4 squares, which would take them 1, 2, 3, 4 to there. They probably don't have to do a manoeuvre test because it costs you 2 to turn, like that. So that would be a manoeuvre test, and it would also cost you 2. They want to get all the way up here before they turn, so they will be turning next turn. So what we're turning next turn. So let's just see what they do first of all. D6 +2 for the chariots. 6 +2, that's an 8, so that is 4. So they're just going to move forward. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So they've got to here. And then we're going to do the same with the light cav. They're a D6 +3, actually, the light cavalry. So that again can take them up to 4. They're going to do the same. They're going to try to get up onto that flank. A 1, so that is actually a failed manoeuvre. A natural 1 You don't add anything to that, so that basically just means that they have failed that straight away. So we're going to have to now try to see if somebody else can manoeuvre in this turn. If we get another failed manoeuvre test, failed activation test, then that will be the turn over for the Britons anyway. So let's just turn over to this side here and have a look at what they want to do over here. So what you have to decide is which are the easiest units to activate when you're starting to activate. So the stuff that will just move forward, the things that are not a jeopardy, that's the stuff to look at and to do first, and then work your way towards the harder aspects. So we're going to do the same here with the light chariots, if that makes sense, of course. D6 plus 2 over here. So 4 plus 2 is a 6, so that's 3 for them. So they're going to go 1, 2, and then 3 to here. So again, trying to get onto that flank of the auxiliary. Now, we're going to deal with the ones in the centre. These are going to want to start to advance, but because they are warbands, they're going to have to go the full rate that they roll. Also, this might break up the line of their advance as well. So, a bit of a tricky one this, because this might isolate some of them, which will help the Romans attack them on their own and destroy them piecemeal. But let's just see. They want to get into combat, and you know, nobody wins a battle by sitting on their arse, do they? So we're going to start with the Iceni warband here, the one that Boadicea is not attached to. She's over here with their skirmishers, and they are going to advance. Because they've got the warband behind them, they can advance with them as well, so they'll move up. And because they're warbands, they actually provide support as well as everything else. So that's what they're going to try to do. Sorry, no, they are going to go with the one with Boadicea here attached. So let's roll our dice. They're just rolling on a d6, a straight dice. A 1, that's the second failure. So that means that's a reversal of fortune. It goes straight over to the Romans, and it's their turn. Okay, as the Celtic warbands are moved up, the Romans are still sitting here on this hill, watching them basically. They're not going to do anything to them this turn, since it's flipped over to them. They are currently 3 squares away, which would require a 6 roll for them to charge into combat here. So they're probably just going to sit here and just wait for the warbands to move up. So they're going to ignore their turn, to be honest. So we're going to go straight back into the Britons, Boadiceans. And what we're going to try to do again with these now is they're going to try to move up their warbands once again. Try to get them closer. They probably won't make the full 3 squares of movement, so I'm not going to charge them, because if they charge and they fail to charge, that will be a reversal of fortune. They've also now got Tiny on their side as well, so obviously things are going to get good for them. They want to be manoeuvring the horses and the chariots on their flanks, so that's going to be a relatively difficult move, because they're going to have to not only activate them but then also do the manoeuvre test. So we're going to wait until everything else has moved first of all. It's easy. So all they want to do is try to get these 2 warbands a little bit closer. Because they're warbands, they're going to go the full distance that they have rolled. So we'll start with the first one here that doesn't have Boadicea attached. They don't get any pluses on this, it's just a straight dice roll, d6. 3. They should have charged. So because they're warbands, they have to go 3 squares. So that's 1, 2, 3. But because they didn't charge, they are not actually in contact with those Romans. Now, that kind of puts them in a little bit of a precarious position, simply because these ones are going to have to move up, and we want them up here because they want to be supporting. They're not charging either, they're just going to advance, because again they need a 6 to actually charge into contact with the Romans up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to hopefully get that 6 and just at least move them up so they can support. Let's have a look. A 2 for them. They only move 1, so Boadicea has not got her warriors into a suitable frenzy enough. However, unfortunately for the Iceni, that has actually it's put these in a very precarious position now for the Romans. But they can still carry on going because they haven't failed a manoeuvre test yet or an activation yet. So the ones over here, the Travantes, they're going to try as well. So they're on a 5. That gives them 2 movements, so that's 1, 2. I'm just trying to get them as close as they can to the Romans. It's a bit of a tricky sticky situation for them at this point. So the last one's over here. One, they failed their activation, so that's the first activation that has failed. So what we'll do is we'll flip over and have a look at what happens on the flank with the horses and the chariots. So over here we've got the light chariots. They actually have they've got a combat ranged ability, but it's only one square, so it's only one in front of them. So they still have to turn to start pecking away at these. They want to get these the light cavalry up, who failed their activation last time. They've already on one failed activation so far. So they're going to try to get these up here into this gap, or at least to support these here. They're not a warband, so they can actually go as fast or as slow as they want. So d6 plus 3. Let's have a look. A 1. That's it, that's failed it. So that means the turn flips over to the Romans. Okay, we have our first combat now. So this is the Roman one. To do combat, you either have to charge into combat and make contact, otherwise that becomes a reversal of fortune, or you just have to be adjacent in a square to the unit you're attacking. So in this case, because these have moved up the hill, they didn't charge. If they had a charge, they would have been able to do their combat. Combat kind of favours the attacker over the defender, really. So you're probably always better trying to get into combat, but they didn't know if they were going to get up that hill and attack. So we've got the Legion 14 is attacking downhill against the warband, who is it? It's the fanatic warband, the Iceni. So they're down as fanatics, but it doesn't actually count for anything in the rules. The Romans are battle trained and drilled. Battle trained means that they will not get pushed back if they are defending in a grind outcome, which I'll show you in a second. And drilled means that they can have an extra re-roll on their movement dice if they want to. However, the Romans are attacking, so basically what we do is we take their combat score, which is a 4, we then add multipliers, and there's not a great deal of them. The unit is charging downhill into combat, so actually it's not charging, so it's standing still, so it doesn't get the +1, so they really need to charge in, but they're not charging, they are just standing, so they don't get a +1 for that. Each friendly unit that supports the attack are the ones that are in the immediately adjacent to the attacking unit. So in this case we've got 1 and 2, and as long as they're not in the zone of control of another enemy, apart from the one that is being attacked, in this case that's where they are. The zone of control is 3 squares in front of the enemy. So they're only in the zone of control of the unit being attacked, so both of these can count. So that's +1 for each of them, so that's 1, 2, obviously. If it was a warband undertaking a charge activation, they're not, they get another +1. If it was an infantry, a cavalry unit with a skirmish front line in front, they get a +1. They don't have 1 because they didn't have any skirmishers to split up onto that, but they've still got a +2 on their 4, so that gives them a 6. They're not attacking across a linear obstacle, and they are not disordered either or being attacked on the flank or the rear. So the Romans have got a 6. So I'll just put that there to remind us, a 6, excuse me. And then the Iceni over here, we have, these are slightly different. They're starting with their combat of 3. We ignore that charge uphill because they're not charging. They are a warband, but they're not undertaking a charge activation because they're defending, so they would have got a +1 for that. However, they do have skirmishers at the front. So let's just start adding these up. So 3 becomes a 4. They also have that support because they're a warband from the warband behind. So that becomes a 5. So we have a combat score of Romans versus the Iceni of 5. So the Romans have beat them by 1. If they were tied, you would roll 1 dice. And that would be the score. If you have more than 1 or more combat score, you roll 2 dice. If you have double the combat score, you roll 3 dice, and this goes the same for the attacker and defender. And what happens if you're rolling multiple dice? You choose which of the scores to use. If the defender has the higher combat score, they would choose the score to use, so they would obviously go low. So you've got 1 in 6, 1 of 6 outcomes. I'll just tell you what they are. For a roll for a 1, it's a repulsed. For a roll of a 2, it's a grind. Let me just see if I can get that up on the quick reference sheet. For a 3, it's a stand, 4 pushback, 5 advance, and a 6 crunch. So obviously 6 being better, 1 being the worst. So the Romans have got 1 more, so that means they are rolling 2 dice. So we roll those, and then they choose which of the 2 dice they want to. Now, if they want to, they've got the command board, you remember from the beginning. They have an attack point on that. If they want to, they can spend that to re-roll the dice, but they've got to go with whatever the score is of the re-rolls. So let's just see what we get first of all. Double 5. So that's 5 and 5, or 5 or 5, should I say. So that is basically, that's a pretty good result. They're going to keep with that, and that is an advance. What happens here is the defending unit is pushed back and they take a discipline test. If the defending unit has skirmish as characteristic, the result becomes a stand instead. They don't have skirmishing results. They don't have skirmishes because that's not what they are. So now we've got a number of tests to roll because we have that pushback. Sorry, the advance. So the defending unit is pushed back and it takes a discipline test. First things first, because they are pushed back, they immediately take a setback card. Anytime a pushback occurs, you get a setback card. You get these for other things as well. There's also disaster cards. But we get the setback card first of all, so we're just going to put that down by the Britons to remind us. Nobody looks at that, even the player taking the card. Nobody knows what it is. That's a number between either 0 and 3. And once it's over the army breakpoint, the game is over. But you have to call Homunculus Est to find that out. So, first of all, we have the pushback. We have to see how far back the units are pushed back. So we roll 1d6 and we just check the table. It tells us how far. It's a 4. It's between 2 and 4 is 1 square. These, because they are supported, will also fall back 1 as well, to allow them to fall back. So the Romans have pushed these back. Then we have to test to see if the skirmishes are still there. A 5 and a 6, they remain. Well, let's see. Yes, they retain their skirmishes. Then we have the discipline test. Now this is a tough bit for the Iceni because they have quite a low, well, quite a high discipline. High discipline is not great. Well, it's 7, so it's probably average. The other ones have got 8, 8 plus. You need to roll 2d6 and you need to score over that number. So 7 up is what they're looking for. They have just passed it. They've got a 7, so they've just passed their discipline test. If they'd have failed it, they would have to roll on the failed discipline test, and that could result in a number of things happening. So a failed pushback rout test. So we could potentially have a rout, or they could retire, or they could become disordered. So there's quite a few things that happen. Now the Romans over here, because that was an advance, they could actually follow up here because they pushed back. They don't want to, simply because that's going to put them into a pretty tricky situation with the warbands on either side. So they don't want to. So what they're going to do is now they're going to roll for their discipline. They need over their discipline score, which is 5 plus, so on 2d6 that's relatively easy, and then they will stand. Otherwise they will follow up. So let's just see. 10, they are going to stand, so there is no movement further from there. So that's the first Roman activation. Then we've got the other 3 as well over here. Now, if the veteran auxiliary were to fall onto the warband here, potentially they would have a good chance because they'd be charging downhill, but they wouldn't have any support, whereas the warband itself would have support. So what they're probably going to do is just going to sit here and wait until they come up the hill at them instead. I think that's probably the best situation. They want to retain their line until they've either disordered or broken a couple of these units at this point. Just let the Celts come up, I think. Okay, so we're back to the Britons. Let's see what they do. They want to, I think they're probably going to try to move some of these warbands up so they've got some support again. The ones here, the Iceni with Boadicea, are way behind, and so is the Antrevates as well. So they're going to try to bring those up. So we'll try with the first ones over here. So they only get a d6 plus 1. A 2 plus 1 is a 3. If they roll a natural 1, then that is a failed activation, but if they get anything above it, they don't. 2 plus 1 is a 3. That only gives them 1 movement, so they can only come up to there. We want to get these up so we can then charge these into the Romans. So they really need a 2 squares forward, so they're going to need a 4, 5 or a 6 at least to get up here. they're not charging. Actually, no. Do you know what they're going to charge, or are they? Or are they? This is the difficulty with the warbands, because they will always go at the speed that they roll. So potentially they could move 2, or they could move 3. If they move 2 and they charge, then they would contact. If they move 3 and they charge, they would also contact. So they've got a 50% chance of them contacting, but then they will also then be unsupported, and they're wanting to support these ones over here, because they're going to try to move in and they're going to try to charge, because there's more chance of them getting in than these ones. They only need a 2 or above to get in, whereas these, they've got a 50% chance of actually getting to here without the charge. Up to 5. So they're going to do it. They're going to go for just a normal move, no charging. 6, of course. A 6 is a 3. So that's 1, 2. They can't go any further, so they just have to stop there. But they could have charged in there if they wanted to, but they haven't. They've just come forward up onto the hill. So then they're going to try to charge these now. Or should we actually get these to try to move? Again, we need a 1 for these to come up, so that becomes another supporting unit. They need as much support as they can to fight these Roman units. So I think they're going to try to get these to come forward as well. Let's just see. A 2. They get a +1, so that becomes a 3. So that is only 1 move. So they're not charging. They're just coming up to pin the auxiliary. And then we're going to try to charge with these to get them into the Legion, because they do get that bonus for charging, and they've also now got support. So let's just see what happens. They are rolling a d6. They basically need anything above a 2. 3 they've got in, and because they've got that support behind them, they're bringing them up as well. Right, so we've got another combat now. So this is this combat here. The support is cancelled out really, because these are automatically in somebody else's zone of control, so that kind of reduces it right down into those bits there. So we ignore the support units because they're basically up against somebody else. They're starting with a 3. They do have skirmishers, so that gives them a 4. They also have this support though, so that gives them a 5. And they were a warband and they declared a charge, so that gives them a 6. So let's just put a 6 down so we remember that. The Romans over here, they have a 4. They don't have the support because the supports are now pinned, so they don't have anything there. They could potentially make them re-roll the defense dice. I'm not going to. I'm going to hold on to it. So they have a 4. It's 4 against 6. So that means that the warband is rolling 2d6 because they have 2 higher than the Romans. So relatively simple there. It's not double or more. So we roll the 2 dice and then they get to choose which one they want to use. So a 3 and a 4. They don't have any attack dice or anything they can reuse to re-roll those. That is either a stand, which is inconclusive, or a pushback, and the defending unit is then pushed back. So of course they're going to take the 4, which is the pushback. So we then see how far back the Legion go. They automatically take a setback card as well for that. So there's our setback card for the Legion. So we put that there with them. And then we roll to see how far they go back. Roll it in the dice tray. A 3 on a pushback is 1 square. So they've broken their line. Because it's just a pushback, they don't have to take a discipline test, so they're okay. They've just been pushed back, but it has broken the line. So it's isolated the auxilia here, so they now potentially could be attacked by the cavalry or the chariots. But let's just concentrate on what's happening here. Then we test for the skirmishers of the Iceni. 5 or a 6 and they stay around. A 2, no, they're taken off, so they're lost as casualties. That doesn't count towards anything, it's just it reduces their attack value. Now we have to see if they are going to follow up or not. So we roll a d6 on a. They have a discipline of 7+. They are not going to. Then they're going to follow up automatically. So we don't have to roll it. Do you know what? I've been doing one thing wrong. I've been completely missing this out, and I'm sure you'll probably be telling me already in the comments. After every combat, you are supposed to roll a dice, and if you get exactly the same number as the dice rolled, then you cancel that combat completely as a defender. Right, ignore that. Don't worry about it. It's just a mistake. I'll remember it for next time. This is my first game on camera of this, but let's just say that they didn't roll it. But yeah, you basically, once you have that number, so they had a 3 and a 4, so then the Romans would then roll a dice, and if it was a 4, when they'd chosen their 4, if it was a 4, it would just instantly cancel the 4 that they chose. So that's how that works. But let's just say so far they haven't done it. I'll probably make a note of this somewhere on the thing anyway, just to head off the comments. But so they've been pushed back. They want to follow up, so now they roll to see how far they follow up. A 6, they can follow up to 2 squares. There's obviously not enough there, so they will just come forward and crash into them. So they've broken the Roman line, so the Romans are going to have to fight back here. This is probably their best combat at this point over here, because they've got support and they're facing the warband as well. Okay, so that's the Romans' line has been pushed back, so that's not great for them, but it can still pull it back. Let's just see what happens. We've still got activations to go, so we're going to try to activate the cavalry once again to bring them up. Try to get them into a point here where they can support this warband if they attack against the auxiliary, and we're also going to try to turn these, but this is going to be difficult because they're going to need to activate and then also manoeuvre, whereas this is just going to be an activation. So they're going to move forward, a d6 plus 3, that's an 8. An 8 on the movement is 4, so they can go up to 4 because they're not a warband. So they're just going to go 1, 2 and then 3, stop there. So then they are now supporting the Tremovanti warband here against the auxiliary. Now we're going to try to shift the veteran the light chariots. Excuse me, they're going to turn. That's going to cost them 2. That's going to be a manoeuvre test. They've got a +2 in their d6. They could potentially come in here and hit these in the flank. So that's what they're going to try to do. If not, they're at least going to try to threaten that flank. So we're going to activate them first of all. So 5 plus their 2 is a 7. That is giving them 3 manoeuvres, 3 movements. Their first manoeuvre is going to be an actual manoeuvre to turn there, and that's going to cost them 2. So they will end up here facing against the auxiliary. They got to do their manoeuvre test, and they need, for their manoeuvre test, is whatever it is on here. It's a 2+ basically, so because they're quite easy to manoeuvre about. 6, they've done it, so that's why it's difficult, because you've got 2 dice rolls, you've got to activate and then manoeuvre. So their second, final action is just to move their unit forward to there. So they are now threatening this the auxiliary, who are now a little bit isolated. They have 1 more unit that they can activate, and that is the light cavalry on the flank, and I think I'm going to do that as well. Okay, then over here on this flank we've got the light chariots. Now they're going to try to charge, and they're going to try to charge into the flank of the veteran auxiliary. So if we can break them, at least push them back, we can. There's more chance of the warbands in the centre fighting on a better footing. So this is going to cost them 1 to move forward, 2, 3 to turn, and then hit the auxiliary in the flank. It will also halve their combat score down to a 2, so it gives them a better chance against them. So we're going to try that. This is just to see if we can smash up the veterans a little bit. So they've declared a charge, so first of all they get a +2 on their movement. So 4 on their movement is only 2 squares, so that's not enough to bring them into contact, because it's 1 forward and then it would be another 2, 3. So because they declared a charge and they didn't contact, that means it's a reversal of fortune. It was their last unit anyway, so it's over to the Romans. Alright, with that line broken, the Romans are a little bit of a sticky situation here, because although these have got Legion 20 have got their auxiliary supporting them, it makes it very difficult for them to actually attack here, because they've got skirmishers and support and another support here as well. So it's quite a lot to take on actually. But attacking does favour the attacker. The game favours the attacker ever so slightly, so it might be worthwhile them actually having a go at it, because I think this is probably the one that's going to win most likely. We can also re-roll the attack dice as well, because we do have they've got their command on their command board. They can spend one of their tokens to do that. So let's do it. you know, faint hearts and all that. So we started with 4. They have support, so that's 5. They don't have support over here because the unit has been pushed back, so they're on a 5. Let's just make a note of that. Against the Iceni, they have a 3. Plus 4 for the skirmishers, plus 5 plus 1 for the skirmishers, plus 1 for the support, so that's 5 already. Plus they have the support over here because they're not in someone else's zone of control apart from the one that are being attacked. Mind you, no, they are actually. So they are. So they can't claim support from them because they are in the zone of control of the auxiliary over here. Or unless theirs are, that has been wiped out. Not sure how that works, to be honest. But let's not give it to them anyway, just for the sake of it. So we've got 3, 4, 5. So 5 versus 5 at the moment. So it's a straight dice roll. However, the Romans can potentially re-roll it if they spend one of their attack tokens. So let's just see what they get anyway. You never know, they might pull it off. If it becomes a 6, it'll be pretty good for them. A 3. Well, a 3 is a stand. We need a 4, 5 or a 6 really to do anything to the defenders. Is it worthwhile going for that extra dice roll at this point? Because this is probably the one that is more likely to win. Well, I say that actually. The other one next door is not. No, so they're gonna save it. It's a stand. It's a standoff. They're not doing anything more. So they're okay with that. We're gonna leave it at that. Now then, over here with this attack, we have a 4 for the Romans. They're going to attack again here. So we've got 4 here against a 3 and a 3. By the way, you don't need to activate if you are already in combat. So if you're in contact like this, if they were moving or charging, they'd have had to activate. They're not, so they don't have to. So we're starting with a 4 for the Romans. That's all they get. They've got no support either side of them. The warband starts on a 3. It gets the support for the 3 there, but it has nobody either side of it to support them, so that is a 4 as well. So it's 4 for 4. The Romans, again, potentially they could re-roll this dice if they wanted to. A 1, that would be a repulse. The attacking unit is pushed back and must take a discipline test, reversal of fortune. That would end their turn, and also take that discipline test. So they are going to spend their attack points that they've got left over, and they're going to re-roll that dice. It can't get any worse than a 1, can it, basically? But they have to stick with this dice roll when it's a re-roll. It can only get slightly better. That's a grind. The attacking and defending units are both pushed back and each take a discipline test, and it is a reversal of fortune. If the defending unit is battle trained, no it doesn't, but the result will become a repulsed instead. So both are forced back, both are taking a discipline test. So let's push the Romans back, see how far back they go first of all. Roll the dice to see that is. Do you know what? Again, I'm forgetting the Iceni will roll to see if they cancel that. I forgot to do it here, but it doesn't matter because, again, it was only a stand, so it doesn't move. So they need to roll a d6. If it's a 2, it cancels it. A 1, no it doesn't. So we do have the pushback. So the Romans push back 6. That's 2 squares. That's not good. 1, 2. So they're right on the very edge of their table now. And the Iceni themselves, they are pushed back a 3. So that is just 1 square, so that means that the ones behind them are also pushed back as well. Then we have to do those discipline tests, see what happens. So the Romans, Legio 14, what happened to them? Their discipline is 5+. They've passed it, that's alright for them. And then the Iceni, their discipline is 7+. They have passed it as well. If that was a failure, we would then look go on the failed test roll. They both will get a setback card because both of them were pushed back. So there's one for the Britons, there's one for the Romans. So these are now starting to build up. They've got 2 each, and as I say, they could at the moment be anything between a 0 and a 3, but the Romans are right on the very edge of the table at this point. Right, so it's the Iceni again. Well, the Boadicians. They're going to activate this one to attack the veteran auxiliary, because this is probably one of the best chances they've got. They've got 2 supporting units. Well, actually only 1, because this one is in the zone of control of the other one over here, but they have no supporting units. They're stuck out on their own. They also have skirmishers, so it's going to be a pretty good score they've got. So the veteran auxiliary have got 4. These are starting with a 3 plus their skirmishers makes them a 4, plus that supporting unit makes them a 5. Because these are in the zone of control of Legion 20 over here, they don't count. So what did we say it was? It was a 5, wasn't it? So they got 5 in total. They're not charging, so they don't get that warband charge, but it's against a 4. So 5 against 4, obviously that's 1 more than the auxiliary, so they're just rolling 2 dice, and they are choosing their best, 2 or a 1. So that is either a grind or a repulse, and obviously they don't want to do a repulse, so they're going to take the grind result. The Romans then re-roll, roll to see if they cancel that. 4, no, they needed a 2, it has to be exact, so they ignore that. So it is a repulse, both of them are thrown back, both of them do that is also a discipline test, and it's a reversal of fortune as well for the Britons, so they can't actually do anything else after this turn. So let's just see how far they... Well, first of all, skirmishers, are they still there? 5 or 6? Yes, they're still there. How far do they get pushed back? A 6, that is 2 squares for infantry. 1, 2, so again that's broken the Iceni's line. The Romans, let's see how far they get pushed back. Just 1, that's no movement, so they actually stand there. Discipline tests. So we're going to do a discipline test for the auxiliary. 6 up. They passed it on an 8. And then we're going to do a discipline test for the Triovantes, and that is an 8 plus 12. So they have passed it. They're okay. Happy days for them as well, at least. But they have been pushed back. That is again a pushback for both of them. So that's a setback card, at least for the Triovantes. Now, because the veteran auxiliary didn't actually get pushed back, well, they did get pushed back because it's just they're reforming and it's too small to see on the table itself, so they do get a setback card as well. So they're both currently on 3, they're building them up at the moment. And that was a reversal of fortune, so that means the turn flips back over to the Romans. So the Romans are going to want to bring Legion 14 back forward. It's 3 squares away, so they need a 6 to get them into position here, but that will help for an attack over here, so that's what I'm going to try to do. They need a 6 to get them. They haven't got a movement command point, so they're basically just rolling the dice, see where they go. If it's a 1, it becomes a failed activation, and half a 4, half of a what you call it, a reversal of fortune. A 4 gives them 2 moves, so that's 1, 2. So they're not in perfect position, but at least it's got them off the danger zone of being on that back edge. So we've got now the veteran auxiliary. What do they want to do is the question here. Do they push forward and attack into the Triovantes, because they will get a bonus for attacking downhill, and also these are isolated, so they would have no what we calling it, any support or anything. However, they would have to pass through these zones of control, so they have to maneuver test to do that, so that's going to be difficult. So we're not going to do that, I don't think. We're just going to actually try to fight against here and see what happens. So we're starting with a 4. They do have support over here, so that gives them a 5 in total and nothing else. They're fighting against the 3, 4, 5. They are now in the zone of control of those, so it's only 5, so it's 5v5. It's a straight dice roll, and let's see what they get. A 4, that's the worst. That's the least worst it could be. That is a pushback. The defending unit is pushed back. Let's see if they cancel that. They need a 4 to do so. A 3, no they haven't, so they are pushed back. So first of all, see if the skirmishers are still around. 5 or a 6, and they are. No, they're taken off. So let's remove them. So they've finally got rid of those skirmishers. Let's see how far back they are pushed. A 5 is 2 squares. These can only move back 1 square, so these will only move back 1 square as well, because they're supporting, they're not in the same line. They can only fall back 1 square. So they push them back a little bit at least. They don't have to do a discipline test, because it doesn't say so, but the Britons do get that setback card as well. So that's another one for them. Now the Romans, do they follow up? Or do they go to stand? They want to stand because they want to reform that line. So we're going to roll on their discipline. They need a 5 or above, otherwise they will follow up. A 5, they just got it, so they are going to stand and watch the Iceni disappear down that hill. So that's those two activated. I'm going to not do anything with the auxiliary at this point, because moving them would be difficult through the manoeuvres, and they're just going to hold for now. So we're going to flip it over, and it's going to become the Britain's turn instead. Right, over here we're going to declare a charge for the Iceni warband to try to get back into action with these. They need one or more movement points to get in, but then they will also have the support of these over here, and they will get that warband attacking, and also they will get a support for these as well over here. So they might tip the balance in their favour. So let's see what they do. They will always move as many as they're supposed to move. They roll a d6 for their movement. They don't get any pluses. A 3 is one movement. That's enough to get them into contact. They will pull these guys up with them. Boadicea herself is at the front of it all, shouting and bellowing. And then we will attack as well here. I think I'm probably forgetting to do the general injury test as well at some point. But if the general suffers a pushback, a disorder, retirement, or a rout, yeah, we're supposed to be testing for the generals. Let's just say that they're surviving these at this point. It's basically a 2 on 2d6, I believe. Yeah, up to a 5 if they rout, just to see if they're injured or not. So let's just say they pass those. I'm going to be forgetting rules all the way through this, but like I say, it's just a demonstration game, and just to give you an idea of how the game flows. So they managed to get into combat, so let's just see where we're starting. We're starting with a 3. They don't have the skirmish support, but they do have the support of the warband. They're also a warband charging, so that takes them up to 5. They also, well, these would be supporting, but they are unfortunately in that zone of control over there, so that sticks them with a 5. These ones over here, the Romans have a 4. They do have support, because these are in nobody's zone of control apart from the one that's fighting. So that gives them a 5 in total. So it's 5v5. So that's a straight dice roll. A 1. They can't change that, so that's not great. That's a repulsed for them. Let's just see if the Romans actually cancel it, because you have to roll it. A 3. No, it hasn't been cancelled. So a repulse is the attacking unit is pushed back. See how far they go. A 2, so they move back 1 square back to where they are. They also must take a discipline test, and it's a reversal of fortune, so it ends their turn. Let's do their discipline test, and we'll see if we'll test for the leader as well, Boadicea herself. Let's test for her first of all. A 2, and she has been injured. That's a 3. No, if it had been the disordered, she would have been injured there, but no, she hasn't. So she hasn't been injured. She just got away with that. But let's see if they fail their discipline test or they pass it. Double 1. That is a failure on the discipline test. Scoring a double on a discipline test, on a failed discipline test, means it's a critical failure. So you actually take away the difference between their discipline and the score you've rolled for the failed discipline test. So their discipline is 7. They've scored a 2, so that's a 5 difference. So they have a -5 on their score now. So now we have to roll on the failed pushback route test. So we roll this. With a -5 on the 2d6. That is a 9 -5, that comes down to a 4. That is a rout. The enemy faces away from the enemy and makes an additional full diced 4 movement away from the enemy. Any friendly units whom the routing unit passes through of their zone of control must immediately make a discipline test. Then the unit is removed from play. And if the Roman Legion, they take a failed eagle test. So these are then turned around. They can't actually move through these, but they do go through. They would go through their discipline test as they're turning around, their zone of control, and also their zone of control in front of them. So both of these have got to do a discipline test as well, and then we remove that unit. So let's just see what happens to these. First one, their discipline is 8 up. 8, they passed it. Theirs is 8 up. So that's 9, so they've passed it as well, so they have disappeared off. At this point I'm not entirely sure what happens to the general. It is a excuse me, it is a rout. So let's just see on the injury. We need a 2 or 2 or 5, and they've been injured. She's been injured, so that's a 5, and let's see what happens to that injury. We roll a d6. A 2 is general killed and removed from play. My god, this is a collapse. Okay, so because of that, we immediately take a disaster card for the general killed. So let's just put that down there. We also take a disaster card for the rout as well. So that's another one there. We also take a setback card as well for the pushback. So they've picked up a load of cards there. And it also says immediate homunculus S test with no removal of card if army is not broken. And then we roll a 1d6 per remaining command points. On a 4 to 6 it's removed from play. They've got 2 on their generalship command points. So a homunculus est actually would normally happens when the enemy calls it out, and they can call it out at any time. You can use a strategy card to stop it if you want to, but in this case what you do is you then reveal the cards. So this is homunculus est test. You reveal the cards one at a time. If it is over the army break point, then the army is broken, the game is over. If it is over half of the army's breakpoint, they become fatigued and they get a -1 on any of their activations, so it's harder for them to activate. So it's still worth calling out homunculus est even if you think they haven't won. Normally if you call it out and the army doesn't break, they can remove a card. However, because the general has been killed, they can't remove a card. So what we'll do now is we'll go through these. Unfortunately for them, the disaster cards could be up to 7 each. The setback cards could be up to 3. So potentially, let's see what's the worst it could be. 3, 6, 9, 12, 19, 27, 26, 30. Potentially, that's the highest it could be, but there could be a lot of zeros. Let's just go through, see what we got. First one up is a 1, a 0, a 1, so that's 2 so far, a 0, we'll do the setbacks first, another 0, so far we're on 2, 5, so that's a 7. So if this is a 4 or above, they haven't broken but they are fatigued. 5, there you go. So they are now currently on 12 out of their 6. So now the Romans know what they're on. So that means that any more cards that they pick up, they will still keep, but they'll keep them face down. But we are now aware that the Britons are on a 12. So they only need 6 more points before they break. So for the Romans, that was a very good turn. Not only have they pushed them back, they've given them 2 disaster cards, they've forced an homunculus est on them, so we know what level they're at, and also they've killed Boadicea as well. One thing after another. So the Romans, and that was a reversal of fortune because they got pushed back. So the Romans are going to activate Legio 14, and they're going to try to charge into the warband now because these are isolated, so they will take a real spanking. They've got they've only got 1 support and not much else. So let's just see what happens. They're going to activate as a charge. They only need to get into here. They don't have any other cards, any other points that they could use on their command board to make this charge happen, but they're just going to go for it anyway. A 1. And it's game over anyway, so partially. 5, that's enough, that would be 2 movement points. So we're getting 1, and that means they're attacking. So they're starting on a 4. They've got these 2 supports here, however these ones are in somebody else's zone of control, so they don't count. So that becomes a 5 because they've got the unit here. The warband is a 3 plus a 4. They are attacking downhill actually, so that becomes a 6, doesn't it? Because they are charging downhill. The warband is on a 3 with a 4, so that becomes a 4. I've probably forgotten some of those drilled things as well for the Romans being pushed back and things, but anyway, never mind. So we're attacking with a, what did we say, it was a 6 against a 4, so it's not double but it is 2 dice. So let's just see what happens, what they get. They've got a 6 and a 2, so in this case obviously they're going to choose a 6. The Iceni have to roll to see if they can cancel that. A 2, no they haven't, so a 6 is a crunch. The defending unit is pushed back and takes a discipline test. So that is again another setback card for the Iceni. So that could again potentially be up to 3, but we're just going to hold off shouting homunculus est at them. So now they push back, see how far they go back. They've gone back 6, which is normally 2 squares, but because they've got the warband behind them, they can only go back 1. So that pushes them back to there. Then they have to do a discipline test. Discipline is 7 up. 7, they've just passed it, but it has pushed them back. The Romans, are they going to follow up? No, I don't want them to, so they're going to pass a discipline test to stand. 5 up. 3, no they don't, so they will follow up. Let's see how far they go. That's a 1. There's no movement actually, so despite the fact that they were undisciplined, they're raring to go, they just didn't get far enough this turn. So the Romans have passed over their turn, and it's over to the Iceni now, and these are now, as we said, these are fatigued, so we're rolling with a -1 basically, so a 1 or a 2 is now going to fail them to move, so it's going to be a bit difficult for these. What they want to do is try to get back into some kind of semblance of order really, some kind of line to attack again if they can. I'm not really sure what's the best place to do this. This might be here, I think. They're going to charge here against the auxiliary because they're at least in the zone of control of the light cavalry. If they went in with the chariots, it would be a 2 against 2. So there's a potential for a disaster over there. So they don't want to do that just yet. So we're going to try to charge up here to get these in, because it kind of they're going to blank each other out a little bit. So let's see if they activate first of all. They have a 3. Sorry, no, they got a +1, and it is a warband charging. So that's a 4 becomes a 5. They've done it. So they've gone move 2. That's 1, 2. So they've actually come into contact here, and they are attacking against the veteran auxiliary. So let's work it out, shall we? So we've got a warband with a 3, it's attacking, so that becomes a 4. It's got skirmishers, that becomes a 5. It's got the support over here, so that becomes a 6. Let's just remind ourselves of that. Whereas the auxiliary have got 4, they've got support, that becomes a 5. So it's 5 against 6. This is probably the best chance the Britons have got. So let's roll our dice. A 4 and a 2, so they're obviously going to choose the 4, which is a pushback. The defending unit is pushback, but let's just see if the Romans can blank that out. A 6, no they can't, so the auxiliary are pushback, and they are pushback 4, which is 1 square, so they just go 4 back to here. Do the warband follow up? They need a discipline test to see if they do, otherwise you could do it automatically. They're going to try to stand, because I want to reform this line here if I can. So it's an 8 up. No, they failed it, so they will follow up straight away into that. Actually, no, we roll to see how far they follow up. So let's roll that. That's a 3. That gives us 1 movement point. So they just move forward 1 there. So they're still in contact, but now they've lost their support because they're too impetuous. So that was the first warband. Ooh, now what do we do? Do we attack with these? They will get the support of these ones, or do we move these up first of all? Let's move the Atrebates up first of all. Same again, 1 or 2. They're not charging, they're just going to move up. So let's see how far. The 5 is 2 squares, which is what they wanted. 1, 2. So they made it. Then they're going to move. They're not going to move these up. They're going to charge with the Iceni, because this is the easiest of the tasks, because they want to get these up into position, but not to charge just yet. So they're going to try to charge with the Iceni. So they need a 4 and above, a 1 or a 2, and they fail to activate anyway. 6, so that's enough. That will get them into contact with those Romans, pulling those with them. So we've got another fight here as well. Also, I forgot to take the setback card for the Romans being pushed back. I apologise. So there we go, there's that. So we now have an attack of 3. It's a warband charging, so that becomes a 4. 5 because of the support. That support is blanked out because they are pinned against each other, and there's no support here. So we said, what was that, a 5? A 5 against the Romans, 4. So that is 2 dice. It's a 3 and a 2. So a 3 is inconclusive, no effect. That's the best. However, let's see if the Romans blank that out. I mean, it doesn't really matter at this point because it's a 4, but you know, it wouldn't change the game anyway, either way. So that ends their movement. So we've still got these over here that can activate. So we're going to. So no, actually, I tell you what we'll do. First of all, over on this side here, let me just move the camera around so you can see what I'm talking about. We have the chariots on that flank. So we're going to try to charge those into the veteran auxiliary. It's not going to be a great fight, this one, but it's still worth doing, I think, because they're getting pushback. So let's just see what happens. Oh, no, they failed it. So that's one failed maneuver test, or failed activation. So there's not much they can do with that anyway. So we'll swing back over here and just adjust that camera slightly. There we go. So then over here we've got the Chariots who will need to turn, so that would be a maneuver test to attack. So I'm going to wait for that. I'm going to try to bring those ones forward here instead. The other warband over here. So again, let's see, they're one or a 2 just to get in here. They're not charging, they're just moving forward. So a 2, that's a failure because they are fatigued. 1 or a 2 is a failure on a fatigue. So that's a reversal of fortune, back to the Romans. Right, the Romans are doing a combat here against the warband. This is probably their best one because they've got 4, 5 for their support. They can't count that. Against a 3, they have no support. So it's a 5 against a 3, so that's 2 dice. If it had been 6 against a 3, it would have been 3 dice, but it's only 2 dice. So let's see, it's a 6 and a 4, so they're going to choose a 6. They have to roll their defense dice. 6, no, a 1, so it's ignored. That is a crunch. The defending units push back and takes a discipline test. So how far are they pushed back? Let's see. 2 is only 1 square, but they still have to do that discipline test, and they need an 8 or above on this one. They failed it, and it is a double, so they failed it with a minus on that pushback as well. So that's a 4 against their 8, so that's actually -4 on their failed discipline test. They also take that setback card as well for being pushed back, so they are now on 2. So they have to roll on their failed pushback test, and we see with a -4 because of that difference. So that is 6, and that becomes 11. -4 is a 7. That is, the unit becomes disordered facing towards the enemy. So unfortunately for them, they now have to halve any combat that they take. I'm not sure if they have to take another card for that. I will just check. Yes, they take an additional setback card for being disordered. So we're just going to put that on there, and I'm just using these shock markers to show who's disordered. Now they have to reform, otherwise they will fight at half their fighting strength. So this is a great chance for the Romans now to follow up if they want to. They are going to follow up, they're not going to stand, they're going to chase them down that hill basically and see what happens. So we are rolling to see how far they follow up. A 1, they'll stand. They're not even going to bother doing the discipline test, they're just going to come down here and smash into them. So hopefully smash them next turn as well, now that the army is fatigued and they're starting to break some of their units. Okay, right, so moving on, they want to do an easy test here, the Romans, and they would just want to move these forward, the veteran auxiliary, into here. They just basically need anything, a 2 or above. 1, they failed it. So that's one of their failed activations, so we ignore that. They wanted to move these forward just to give them a bit more support attacking the Atrebates there. Atrebates there, but they couldn't. Meanwhile over here, we're going to attack with a Legion 14. They're just rolling a dice because they're attacking against a 3 with a 4 because of their support, and they have a 4. So it's just going to be a straight dice roll. 3, but as I said, the dice actually do favour the attacker, so it's worthwhile doing it anyway. So that's just a stand, it's inconclusive and there's no effect, so we just ignore that. Over here we're doing the same with the veteran auxiliary. They don't have to activate, they're just going to attack. They've got skirmishers, they've got a 3, so 4, so it's a straight dice roll to see see what happens. A 1, that is a repulsed. I should have rolled to see if they cancelled that 3 out, but again it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter. Now we have to roll to see if they cancel out the repulsed. No, they don't. So the veteran auxiliary are repulsed, they're pushed back, they take a discipline test, and it's reversal of fortune. So unfortunately for them it was their last thing they could do anyway, but let's see how far back they go. 5, I don't think that's good. That is 2 squares. So again, they're on the edge of the table. So they were there, 1, 2, they come back here. They take a discipline test as well. See if that maybe disorders them. They need a 6 up. 7, they've passed their discipline test, but again that has meant that the turn turns over to the Britons. Once again, their line is disordered, but they're going to try to drive in the Romans here, so it's 4 against 4. So we'll just roll 1 dice. A 5 is an advance. The defending unit's push back, takes a discipline test. If the defending unit is skirmishers, it becomes a standard. They don't. So let's just see if they cancel that with their defense dice. No, they could re-roll that with their defense dice on the command board. They're not going to. Let's just see how far back they get pushed back. A 5 is 2 squares, 1, 2. For that, they will then take a setback card because they've been pushed back. So we'll give them a setback card. I think that's only their 4th or 5th at this point. And they do a discipline test. However, their discipline is pretty high, so it's a 5 up. 5 and 4 is 9. Do these follow up? Yes, they want to, because they want to try to force them off the table. So see how far forward they go. They don't. No movement, so they don't go any further forward than that. Then we've got the ones over here. These are going to try to reform. Slightly dangerous, because they need an 8 or above, and if they fail it, it's a reversal of fortune. But I want them to reform so they can at least defend against the Legion over here. So let's just have a look. They need an 8 or above. 6, they haven't reformed. That's a reversal of fortune. Back to the Romans. Okay, the Romans have got a couple of things they want to do. They want to bring these forward so they can then support them in the attack. They also want to charge these into that warband as well. It's going to be better, I think, to bring these forward. That's the easiest thing to do. They just need anything but a 1 to get them into there. And also it won't be a reversal of fortune immediately, because it'll only be 1 failure if they do fail. So this is probably the easiest thing to do, just so we can try to really smash the Atrebates warband as they are still disordered. So let's do that first of all. 5, they've done it. Because they're not a warband, they can choose how far they go, so they're only going 1. So they are now adding support to this attack, which is going to go in here. So we've got a 4, 5, so that's what we're up against. They have a 3, their combat. It's halved and then rounded down because they are disordered, so that's a 1. So they are double the amount. So we're going to roll 3 dice this time. So this is the first time in the game 3 dice have come out, and they get to choose which one they want to use. So they've got a 6, a 4 and a 3. Obviously they're going to take the 6. So the warband has to defend against that. 6, and it does. No, it doesn't. It got a 5. So that is a 6, which is a crunch. The defending unit's punched back and takes a discipline test. So see how far they get their pushback. 4 is 1 square. So they're pushed back to here. We'll do a discipline test, see if these pass it or not. Now we have to do the discipline test. So we roll. Their discipline is 8 up. That's a 3. They will automatically take that setback card anyway for that pushback. So that pushed them back, so they failed their discipline test. It's not a double, so it's not a critical, so we just roll the 2d6. Double 1. Can't get any worse than that. That is a rout. Enemy faces away from the enemy, makes an additional full dice for movement away from the enemy. Any friendly units whom the routing unit passes through their Zoc must take an immediate discipline test. They don't, because they're at the back, and I think when they turn around, their Zoc is that point there, so there's nobody behind them. They're basically fallen back and run off there. However, that is going to be an immediate disaster card for them as well. So we put that in there. So they've taken the fallback and the disaster card. The Romans are going to try to stand, so we'll take that off. They're gone. They're going to try to stand. They don't want to chase them down the hill. So we do a discipline test for them. 5 up because they're battle hardened. That's 9. They passed. Now we're at a stage. We're still in the Romans' turn. They are going to use the homunculus est activation. So this is when you call out your enemy's cards. So we already know that they've got 12. So let's just double check it. So we've got 0, 0, 0, 0, 5, 5, 2 1s. So they've got 12. They are teetering on the brink. If these cards make 6 or more, then it's game over and the Britons have lost because they're broken. If it's less than 6, which I doubt it is because they've got a disaster and a ton of setback cards, if it's less than 6, they will then get to remove any one of these cards that they want. So it's kind of, you're setting yourself back a bit. The Britons don't have a strategy point, so they can't actually stop the homunculus S this turn. So they can't do that. So let's just crack on and see what we've got. So we'll start at the bottom with the setbacks. So 1, 4. What did we say? 6 or above. So basically now, if there's 2 in here, and there isn't going to be, they can still fight on. There you go, 2. That takes them up to over their 18. But let's just see what the others are. A 1 and a 5. So in total, we had 5, 10, 12, plus the 12, 24. That's 6 over their breakpoint. The Bodician rebellion is over. Game over. The Romans have run. They smashed them through basically by sitting on the hill and waiting for them to come up and break themselves. There was a couple of points there where I thought the Romans getting pushed back might break there as well. But let's just have a quick look, see what the Romans got. Their breakpoint was 13. They've got 0, 0, 0, 1 and 1. So 2 out of all those cards. So they still have quite a way to go. But that is basically how Strength and Honour plays. I've made a few mistakes here and there, like forgetting to test for the generals and things in combat, and also forgetting to roll that dice again as a defence dice as well. But you get an idea basically of how the game plays, how the flow of the game is. And as I say, this one's a pretty simple setup because you've only got a few warbands and a couple of legions. If you had more than this, then it'd be there's a little bit more complexity. But I do hope you've enjoyed that. I certainly enjoyed playing it. I will try, if I remember, to put markers in the game where I can, where I know where I've forgotten rules and things like that, just so you know that I know that I'd forgotten them. There's probably a few more bits and pieces here and there that I've forgotten on top of that, but as I say, it's just a demo game just to give you a basic idea as to how the game flows and how it plays itself. I do apologise for not being able to see some of the units, but that's because of the loft window. I'll try to work on that for future games, but I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do like and subscribe, leave me a comment, and I will see you in the next Storm of Steel video.